Hi everybody, I'm Dan. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Dan.
It's Friday night. It's 10 after 8, and I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and life couldn't be any better for me, because I'm in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date's 5/25/06. I experienced strength and hope, right? What it was like. So I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I was a military brat. My dad was in the Navy, and all 3 of my brothers were in the Navy, and so was I. And ever since I was a little kid, I was raised. I knew how to fold my rack at the age of about 5, and my underwear, skivvies as they call it in the Navy, and fold all that stuff, man. I was squared away. That's how my dad ran our house, was like a ship, and I had a lot of good stuff happen when I was a kid. I didn't want for much. We raised some cattle, and we had a good life. And I went to a Catholic school, and my first day of school, I was in kindergarten, and I lived across the street. And our first bathroom break, they took us out to took us to the restroom in a line, and everybody go and use the restroom. And she's counting heads, and I was already at that school for ever since I was 5. I used to go over there and play with my older brothers and sisters, and I was like, I don't like it here, and I ain't staying. So I just went out the back door and never came back. And incidentally, it was the teacher's first day of teaching class as a teacher, right? So she's frantic and looking all around, and she goes and gets my oldest brother, and they walk across the street, and they find me. This is back when they had telephone tables in your houses, and typically they had like drapes over them, and the telephone sat there, and that's where you made phone calls from, right, in the house. And I was underneath the table drinking a Pepsi, which, I had to steal the Pepsi because everything was rationed in my house. You only get so much and so much. And so even then, right, I wanted something that I couldn't have. And I didn't want to do what they were telling me to do, right? So right off the start, there was issues with Dan and with authority figures, right? And my family. And I think my first drink, my mom had some friends over, I think, and she had what looked like milk in her glass, and they were playing cards, and I went over, and it had some brown. It looked like brown. It was like a 2-tone drink, and I was like, "Wow, cool!" And I thought it was like milk and Pepsi or something. And I drank some of it, and I think it was a White Russian, maybe. And with a White Russian, if you've ever had one, it's not very, it's sweet. It's not a shot of whiskey, So it was a pretty good experience. It wasn't. I didn't get drunk, right? But that was my first drink that I remember, and I was probably about 7 or 8. And then nothing really happened until I hit high school, and I went out with some guys after school on the weekend or something, and we had like a 6-pack of beer, maybe a 12-pack between us, and I drank a bunch of beer. What I thought was a bunch of beer, got a buzz, and then to hide, the fact that I was drunk, probably when I got home in the middle of the afternoon, I went down and took a shower, and everybody thought, what's he doing? He doesn't only take a shower once a week, and he's down there in the middle of the day, right, taking a shower, right? And so I got in trouble for that, and I didn't really drink a whole bunch in high school until I got to be about 16. So I held off, a couple years, right? And then the first time I experienced, a blackout, I was drinking slow gin and drank a bunch of that and woke up the next morning and got sick. And I actually thought I was dying or something because the color was coming out was red. And I thought, man, I don't want to do that anymore. I probably shouldn't drink. And the next weekend, we did it again, right? So I didn't learn from any of it. And somewhere along the way, I discovered some non-approved AA substances and started smoking some of that and combined with alcohol. And somewhere along my 17th birthday, everybody figured out that Dan was an alcoholic, except Dan. And they put me in a treatment program, and I lasted about 28 days. And they kicked me out, I remember, for having cookies under my bed. I stole them from the cafeteria or whatever. Again, more stuff that Dan's not supposed to have. I want it, right? That's how I roll. And so anyway, I got out and I went to AA meetings after I got out, and I stayed sober. I was sober maybe 6 months, and then I slipped, and then I stayed sober again maybe another 3 months. But I'd go to these meetings, where people were like my age now, and I could relate to them. I could sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I heard what you were saying, and I liked what you were saying, and I could relate to it. And I didn't put two and two together, right? I didn't put the fact that these people are real alcoholics, right? And they have a disease of alcoholism, and so do I. It didn't mesh. And anyway, I didn't stay stopped, and then along came the DUI problem that I ran into. It seemed like for every 2 years of my drinking career after that, I would get pulled over for DUI. I like to drink in public, in bars, and before I got in the military, I had gotten pulled over once, and I got a DUI, and I think I got some probation, maybe 30 days or something, 60 days of probation. They sent me to AA and got my card signed, and then I went. I started drywalling, commercial drywalling, metal framing with my oldest brother, and I discovered that in that industry you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do. I could drink the way I wanted to. I could hang out with the friends I wanted, and there was no ramifications, for my drinking. And I did that for a couple years, and then somewhere along the way I decided that maybe this wasn't right for me. Maybe I should have a geographical change, and so I joined the Navy like my older brothers, and was in the Navy for 4 years, and I dislocated both my knees while I was in, and I was in rehab for 8 months before I got out. And anyway, I drank in the military. I didn't overdrink, I'll put it to you that way, because I had a lot of respect for my family, my brothers and my sisters, my brothers and my dad, excuse me. It was a Navy tradition, right? You can drink, but show up for work and don't get in trouble, right? Don't get, you don't want a bad conduct discharge, any of that. So I was able to hold it together, and not get into trouble. And I didn't have a vehicle, which was probably to the betterment of the community, because I would have been driving, and I didn't care. Once I picked up a drink, I picked up the keys, and that's what I did. And I got out of the military with an honorable discharge, and I went back to drywalling with my brother, and I started a career in that. And by the time I was 25, I was running my own jobs, and I had a lot of responsibility. I'd have large crews of guys, 15, 30 guys working under me, and I would drink every day after work, every day. I was off 7 a.m. to 3:30 in the afternoon. That was my day. And by 3:45, 4 o'clock, I was in the bar drinking, till midnight, 1 o'clock. Wake up and do it all over again. And that lasted for decades, at least two. along the way, I met a bartender at my favorite watering hole, and thought it'd be a good idea to get married after I got out of the military, and I got married, and she had just graduated from the University of Nebraska, and she didn't like the way I drank, and she suggested I go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I'm like, I've already been to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it doesn't work, right? It didn't work. Anyway, she said, look, I'm going to leave you if you don't go. So, alcoholics don't do anything without consequences. So I go to an AA meeting in Somerville, Kansas, and there's like 12 old people there, and I don't really want to be there. And I got a big chip on my shoulder because I'm being forced by, not the court, but my wife to go to an AA meeting. And long story short, we got divorced, and then I jumped into a bottle of whiskey really hard for about a year, and I didn't come out of it. And pour me another drink. That's my attitude and how it was, and it wasn't my fault. She knew who I was when I was at the bar, passing out on the bar. Why is she trying to change me? Anyway, so I started getting these DUIs, and I probably had 2 within a month, and then I told my mom I was going to move to Australia, to get out of it, geographical change, trying to get better, and that never worked out. And long story short, by the end of my drinking career, let's see, I had one more wife that I met in the same bar. She was a patron this time, but that lasted 10 years because she drank like I drank, and it lasted until my drinking just got so bad I was unemployable. I had gotten my 12th DUI. They had taken my license for 15 years, and I woke up that morning in jail, and I knew the gig was up because the sentence in Nebraska, if it's an honest program, I was pulled over 12 times. My final arrest was a 4th offense DUI, which was a felony, and so they took my license for 15 years, and I thought, man, this is it, man, my life's over. I can't even get to the grocery store. What am I going to do, and I'm in jail, and I'm in a holding cell, and if you've ever been in jail, the holding cells pretty much suck. There's not much comfort in one of them, and I woke up, and I got on my knees and I prayed and I asked God to help me. And it was the only time that I ever really, I wasn't asking him to get me out of anything because I was screwed anyway. I knew I was. It was the end of the line for me, It was either keep drinking till I die or try and find a way out. And over the course of those DUIs, I'd been sentenced to AA so many times. I'd heard the message. I knew where to get better. I knew there was help. I just hadn't had enough consequences in my drinking career, to open my eyes. And so a couple days later, let me see. My friend was waiting to bail me out on $500, but they wouldn't let me out because I was on the run from Kansas for a DUI, so they held me for like 9 days. And I'd never been held for 9 days. I would always bond out within 24 hours. I'd get out of the drunk tank or jail, whichever one it was. But this time they held me, and I didn't like jail. That was bad, And anyway, I walk out of jail, and my brothers bailed me out, and they said, don't go home. Just go to a treatment facility. And I went to a treatment facility out in western Nebraska, at a place called Valley Hope, and it was a spiritual-based 12-step program. And I had already been to treatment several times, a couple outpatients, one inpatient treatment when I was young. And long story short, when I got on my knees in jail and prayed to God for help, I knew where the answer was. It lied in AA, not in a treatment center. The answer for me was coming to AA and listening and finding a sponsor and doing all these things that you hear in the meetings, right? And it's funny how that works if you are willing to do what the suggestions tell us. And Anyway, so I go to treatment and I get out of treatment, and my wife is she's like, "Are you really going to quit drinking?" And I was like, "Well, that was like my 12th DUI, right? It's just, something isn't working here. Yeah. I mean, either that or I'm going to die. And she wasn't really for that. She wanted to keep going on that route, and with that last DUI, they gave me work release, like 9 months work release, which is still jail, but I always called it Camp Snoopy, because I could get out during the day, and I ran the job, so it wasn't like I didn't have access to a lot of things that most inmates have access to, and but this time when I was there, I was like, man, I am in jail, and I can't do what I want. I'm not going home every day, and this does suck. And anyway, I got out of jail, and I went home, and within 6 months I was going through a divorce, and I lost everything. And over those 10 years I was with that wife, I did stuff that I wouldn't have done if I wasn't drinking. And we went our separate ways, and God love her, she stood by me for a long time, and but she wasn't on the same path of recovery that I was on. And so anyway, I got divorced, and so now I don't have a ride to work, and my wife left me, and I don't have a lot of stuff, right? All the stuff's gone. I had to sell my house, I had to sell the cars and all that stuff, and I got this sponsor, and he started working the 12 steps with me, and I started looking back at my life. I got to about step 3, and I started looking behind me a little bit of what happened, right, from when I was a little kid to now, when I was getting sober, and going to step 4 and 5 and seeing the wreckage of the past that I've caused, and all this stuff, man. It was like, have you guys ever seen Pigpen on the Peanuts? He's got that blanket of crap he's hauling behind. That's what my life looked like, just like that. I'm hauling all this crap behind me, and anyway, I get to a year sober, and I'm divorced, and like I said, I don't have a driver's license, and I work in the steps, and my sponsor says, Dan, if you ask for a ride, if you go to the meetings, you ask for a ride, and give them a couple bucks, you'll get to meetings. And because I was riding my bike, and Nebraska gets pretty cold in the winter, and I sobered up, like I said, in May, and a year later, because I spent the first winter in jail, the second year, right, I'm still on my bike, and I started asking for rides, and started putting money on the dash. Most people wouldn't take the money, but it was the point I was willing to pay my own way to get to meetings, and so that started working pretty good, and then I got a wild hair. I met a girl in New Jersey, and then I moved out to New Jersey, and I ended up marrying her, and she was non-alcoholic, and our lives was pretty good when we were dating, but then when we got married, she had some children, and I didn't have children, and it was like, how long do you got to keep going to those AA meetings, and I'm like, well, I am an alcoholic, and if I want to stay stopped, the best avenue for me, right, is to go to AA meetings, right? That's what's going to work for me. And anyway, it didn't work out, and we ended up getting divorced, but I was there with her children for 8 years, and I was going to meetings and getting rides. I would go to 3 to 5 AA meetings a week, and I didn't have a driver's license, right? And then one of her oldest children, she's getting ready to go to college, and we decided to move down to Maryland. And so we moved to Maryland, and a nice little kind of farm community, kind of outside Baltimore, and then shortly thereafter I get divorced, right? And this one buddy of mine, he says, he's like 30 years sober. He goes, Dan, why don't you get your license back? I'm like, man, they took it for 15 years. They're not going to give me my license back. And he said, well, if you do the footwork and get out of the results and see what's happens, maybe you'd be surprised, And so I applied to get my license back, and I had to go to a treatment center, and I was 10 years sober, and they said, why are you here? I said, I need a new evaluation. They go, for what? I go, well, for alcoholism. And they're like, well, when was your last drink? I go, 10 years ago. They're like, why are you here, right? So I tell them, and I fill out this whole big bunch of paperwork, and then I send it into the state of Nebraska, and I get a call to come to the state capitol. The governor wants to see me, right? So So I go there, and I've got my sponsor and my grand sponsor and my mom and my sister. A bunch of people showed up, and people didn't used to show up for me when I was drinking, and I didn't show up for them either. But things started changing in my life, and I get there, and the governor is sitting there with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, and and they said, well, based on this, Mr. Haley, you've changed your life, and you can have your license back, but you'll have to have a breathalyzer for the last 5 years of your sentence. And I'm like, sweet, right? I can drive, right? Thank you, God. All these things, and by the time I moved here, I still had a breathalyzer, right? So I'm sober 17 years, so a couple years ago I still had a breathalyzer on my pickup, So that's how long some of the wreckage of the past will can stay with you, I mean, if I can get sober, a lot of people can get sober. People say, I can't get a ride to a meeting. Well, come here, I'll tell you how you can get to a meeting. Ask somebody for a ride to the meeting, right? If somebody's in a meeting in here and needs a ride home, let me know, because I'll give you a ride. And I won't ask for a couple bucks, I'll just give you a ride, That's what AA does, They show up and they suit up and they take care of each other, We're like they say in the big book, we're on the same sinking ship, if you will, men of a sinking ship, right? Passengers on a liner, right? And anyway, when I was in Maryland and I was divorced, right? And then I go on these golf trips with these AA guys, and I met this guy, and he's really nice, and he's about my dad's age, and a lot of fun. Probably 30 guys. We go on these golf trips down to Myrtle Beach and have fun. And I met him. His name's John, and somewhere along the way, one of my buddies goes, "Hey, do you know his daughter?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, she's a pretty nice gal." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I just got divorced like 6-8 months ago, and I'm good, It's like, I've been married 3 times, man. I really don't want to go down this road again, And anyway, they said, well, she's sober. I go, really? Yeah, she's sober, man. She's like, 23 years sober. And I was like, no, she was like 25 years sober, and I was 15 years sober. And anyway, I ended up I met her. I went to a meeting she was at, and I was walking by this Prius, right? I was walking by, and this big old German Shepard in there, and it jumped out and started barking at me, scared the hell out of me, And I was talking to my buddy that gave me a ride to the meeting, right? And I said, Jesus, I'm like, whose dog is that? He goes, oh, that's your new ex-wife's dog. I'm like, what? He goes, no. He goes, that's John Deacon's daughter's dog. I go, really? I go, that's a big dog. I don't know if I want to go on a date with her or not, man. But I went in and I met her. I went in as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to a meeting, and that's where I met my wife. And life's been good ever since, really good. And when I first got sober, my sponsor said, Dan, do yourself a favor and don't date somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't realize that he didn't mean like forever. He just meant like don't do it in the first couple of years, Get to know who you are first, and then, if you find someone in, whether it's in the rooms or out of the rooms, be careful, Dan, And I found a person that works a good program and helps me with mine, and we mesh good together, When I was with a woman that was not an alcoholic, that didn't understand alcoholism, it was hard to relate together. I would tell her these crazy stories of my drinking days, and she'd be like, what? You did what? Right? And then when I'm talking to my current wife, she'd be like, "Yeah, no kidding, right?" And she'd start laughing, you know. Yeah, so it's different, but we moved here 3 years ago, and it was funny. We were traveling in a fifth wheel, and we were selling campground memberships up and down the East Coast for a year, and COVID hit, and we were stuck in Florida for the winter, which was rough. But you know, we went to a meeting down there, right? We went to a meeting down there, and I walked into this meeting, and I saw this guy that I'd seen up in Maryland, right? And I'm like, "Hey, Joe, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing down here?" Right? And people that I just met, you know, along the way, and you run in. AA is really small. Once you start venturing outside the rooms a little bit, you travel. If you ever travel, go to meetings outside your state, your city, whatever, and you'll find that AA is pretty small. I've noticed that over the years, and anyway, I said, well, let's go visit my brother out in New Mexico, you know, and she goes, okay. So we sold our house on the Eastern Shore. We lived down by the ocean. We sold the house, and we headed out this way, and I said, hey, look, I want to stop and visit my old drinking buddy. His name's Dan, too, in Kimberly City. And it was funny, I met him at a Steppenwolf concert with John Kay, I might add, a long time ago. And I woke up in the back of his Grand Prix. It was like an 82 Grand Prix, maybe. And it had like that crushed velour dark seats in it. And it had a sunroof in it, and it was in the summertime in Nebraska, right? And we had drank the last 12-pack out of the bar, so we've been drinking all day. Watched Steppenwolf, you know, and Slow Ride. No, that's Foghat, Magic Harbor Ride. And I wake up in the morning, I'm in the back seat, and it's like already 85 degrees, and the windows are up because the mosquitoes are bad, right? And I'm waking up sweating my ass off, man. And I was hungover, and I wake up, and I'm like, dude, he goes, whoa, he goes, what are you doing in my car? And I said, hey man, we bought the last 12-pack out of the bar last night. He goes, oh, he goes, what's your name? I go, it's Dan. He goes, no. I go, yeah. He goes, well, that's my name. I go, well, that'll keep it simple, you know. And I said, hey, will you give me a ride back to Lincoln? He goes, you're already in the effing car. And I said, okay. So he gives me a ride back to Lincoln. That's how I met this guy. And I tell my wife, I go, look, I want to go see this guy. I haven't seen him in a long time. So we come here, and we're on the way here, and she goes, hey, just so you know, I'm not moving to Missouri. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, we got here, and we never made it to New Mexico. We wanted to be we wanted to be close to some water. We wanted a little bit of land for our dogs, and you know, it met all of our criteria that we were looking for, and AA is different here, just like everywhere. When you get used to your little niche in AA, whatever town you're in, because I lived in 3-4 different states since I sobered up, and they're all a little different, right? And it takes a little while to get settled back into a different area, you know, and get comfortable, if you will, in AA. And I got here, and you know, we live in Lampe, and it's about a 45 minute drive for me to get here, and we be coming to the meetings, and you know, like I said, we got here shortly after COVID, and I thought, you know, Cindy goes, we need to have a meeting out here, and so I went to the preacher, right, out in Lampe, and I talked to him, see if we could have a meeting. And he says, well, you know, let me talk to the deacons, you know, and see what they say, or the elders, and he goes, I'll get back with you. And then he calls me, and he says, hey, Dan, he goes, I think we're okay with it. He goes, but we've got a member, I've got a good friend that's sober like 40 years, 38 years, and I'd like you to talk to him first, you know. I'm like, okay. And he gives me his address. Turns out he lives across the cove from me, right? This guy's like 78, and I go over and I ring the doorbell, and it's summertime, and he shows up, and he opens the door in a pair of jean shorts, and that's it. No shirt on, no shoes on, you know. And I'm like, wow. He goes, hey, my name's Rich, you know, come on in. And you want a cup of coffee? And I go, sure. And we're sitting across the table, and he's telling me he's from Chicago, and he's sober this long, and then he starts grilling me, asking me a bunch of questions. I'm like, wow, man, that's weird. I said, so are you like the screener for the church? He goes, haha, yeah, the screener. I'm the screener. I go, well, yeah, I've been sober 15 years, man. We just want to start a meeting closer to home, so we can have, obviously there's more drunks around here. It's a lake, for God's sake. There's got to be more drunks, And he goes, no, we just want to make sure you weren't, a meth head and going to steal the church. I went, oh, okay, like a drunk wouldn't steal the church either, right? There's some big difference there. But anyway, we started a meeting a couple years ago, and we started, for a while it was just Cindy and me. And the first meeting we had maybe 4 or 5 people there. And the next day we came down with COVID. So we had to call the 4 or 5 people that were at the meeting and go, hey, next week we're not going to be having a meeting because we got COVID, And I don't think anybody at the meeting got COVID from us. But anyway, that was kind of cute story. And but our meeting has flourished. There were some days, we would sit in the parking lot and look at each other, and wait till about 15 after, and nobody'd show up. But, that's what they said to do. They said, keep the doors open, because you never know who will show up for an AA meeting, and if the doors are closed, what's a drunk guy going to do if the doors are closed, Oh, they aren't serious anyway. They ain't going to work, AA's not going to work for me. They don't even show up to their meetings. And anyway, we've had a couple anniversaries, and we've got, I don't know, probably average of 10 people on a regular basis, and we're a big book meeting, and we just recently started doing a living sober book once a month, and which is good. I like living sober. It teaches you how to live sober, right? And a lot of good stuff in that book. So shortly after we moved here, maybe a year after we moved here, we decided, I had been a GSR, and I had been an alternate DCM in New Jersey, and I said, well, let's go to the district meeting, because they announced there was a district meeting at one of the meetings, and I said, let's go to the district meeting. And so we go to the meeting, and next thing you know, I'm the alternate DCM, and then the next thing you know, Cindy's the treasurer, and then the next thing you know, now I'm the DCM, right? And I'm not by trade a volunteer, right? I don't volunteer for everything, I'm one of those reluctant volunteers, and because I'm selfish and self-centered, right? That's what I do, because I'm an alcoholic. But right, over the course of some years, they said, look, Dan, you don't have to be selfish and self-centered, and you can give back freely what you've been given from the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you can give some time to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I really like I like service work, and I like meeting other people that are at these service conventions. The area assemblies. I've been to the Northeast Regional Conference, NERASA, and lots of good people, and people that would not normally mix, right? So I've met a guy that owned a heart hospital. I met Navy pilots that landed on aircraft carriers, half in the bag. I mean, people from all walks of life are in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not picky who it chooses, right? I'm a drywaller. I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. Shocker, right? Right? Like painters, There's a lot of painter drunks in here. That. Plumbers and all that, But anyway, I have found something that works. Finally, I have a life today, and I owe it to Alcoholics Anonymous. I never traveled as much as I did after I lost my driver's license. I traveled more without a driver's license than I ever did drinking, sitting on the bar stool. I would go to NASCAR races and pass out in the middle of NASCAR races, and I would go to drag strips and pass out. I was one of those guys that I could drink and drink and drink hard, and then just never knew when I was going to black out, and you never knew when I was going to hit the curb, and then, my buddies would end up having to pick me up, and I was a pretty good-sized guy, and they always cuss me, for having to drag me out of these places, and I don't have to live like that anymore. Life's pretty good, right? It's Friday night, just like I was saying. Friday night, Dan's not drunk. Dan's not in a jail cell. I'm not getting divorced. I'm not having to lie to people all the time where I've been, what I've been doing, And I was a reluctant drunk. I was scared. I was scared of what would happen if I gave up drinking. That's what really, when it boils down to it, I was scared to give up the drink, because it was courage, all that stuff that I thought I got out of drinking, courage, ego and all that good stuff. It never really happened for me. I always thought that, I thought more of myself than other people, and today I try to think of others first, and that's unlike me, that's not my nature, because again, I'm an alcoholic, right? But I don't have to act like that anymore, and I'm grateful that I have tools in my life, right, that can help me through crises, right? I lost my nephew this summer to fentanyl, and it was my oldest brother's son. And my oldest brother's one of us, and he's been into AA before, but it hasn't worked for him. And he called me, and he said Adam had overdosed, and John was in Denver, and I got on a plane the next morning, and I went out there to be with him, to support my brother. And like I said, I've got 3 other siblings, and I'll be damned, none of them came out there. And then I had some colon surgery right before his funeral, and I called my brother and my other nephew, which was Adam's, my nephew that passed away. I called his brother, and I said, hey man, I really want to be there, but I can't be there because I had this surgery and I can't get on a plane, and they understood. And I just couldn't believe the rest of my siblings didn't go out to the funeral. I was like, what the? It's unfortunate that not everybody has the tools, right, that you learn in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? It's not just to show up to AA, it's to show up for your family. It's to show up for all these events that I was too busy for when I was drinking, right? Graduations, any kind of ceremony other than a wedding. Wedding's always a pretty good drunk. So is a funeral, but other than that, if I can't drink, I'm busy, But today I'm not that busy. I'm a family member again, And I just, for the life of me, I could not believe that my family wouldn't show up for him, and it puzzles me a little bit, and. But I have Alcoholics Anonymous to thank for showing me how to show up, be part of life again. I mean, really, Because in my drinking day, I would not have showed up either, I'd be like, wow, how much that plane ticket is? I can't, no, I'm busy and I can't make it, but I can make it today, and that's due to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new, it's the best game in town right here, man. It doesn't seem like it. Like when you get here, I didn't come in on a winning streak, I didn't walk into Alcoholics Anonymous with everything. I came in with nothing, and I couldn't finance anything. I couldn't borrow anything. I couldn't do anything. And little by slowly, as they say, I built my credit up, and I got all my stuff back. But more importantly, I got myself back. I've got self-respect, and I've got some dignity, right? Which is all the stuff I threw out the window every time I would lower the bar when I'd be out drinking and using. I just keep lowering it and lowering it and lowering it, and till I was in the gutter, man. And it takes a while to get up out of that gutter again. It's not like, hey man, I joined Alcoholics Anonymous, life's great. It took me like 2 years to just get my head up just above the curb a little bit, But watching everybody else in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came in and guys would have 6 months and I'd have 3 months, or guys would have a year and a half or 2, and I'd watch them and see how they were progressing, and I thought, man, I'm not gonna give up. When I came in, when I was in that jail cell, I remember I promised God that I would do my best. I said I would give him 110%. I would give Alcoholics Anonymous 110%, and I quit drinking for a year. And about my 6th DUI, I quit for a year. And I didn't come to AA because I wasn't like you guys. And I didn't need you guys, and I quit for a year, and I picked up a drink. And then the drink took me. But somewhere I made that promise to God that I would give 110%. And I just kept saying, I'm not going back to the same old shit. I'm just not going back to it. And every day it just got a little bit easier, to understand who I was and what was happening in my life, as a sober man, and life's good today. I still have my ups and downs. I said I had a little cancer this summer, and it was I used my higher power, I said, God, it's your will, not mine, be done, and whatever happens is going to happen anyway. Whether I grab hold of the steering wheel and try and call the doctor and say, damn it, I just went, I surrendered to that too. And, I'm not saying that I couldn't have had a lot more cancer and it could still be there. Who knows? It could come back. But, my higher power walked me through that. And I lost both my parents sober. My mom got cancer. She got lung cancer. She hadn't smoked in 40 years. And she got cancer, and I was living in Maryland, and I had finally got my license back, right? And my sister, I only have one sister, and she's right in the middle of 4 boys, right? So my sister's in the middle, and she's a tough cookie. And but I always tell her she's my favorite sister. She was always there for me when I tried getting sober, and she always supported me. And so she calls me and she goes, hey, look, Mom, but if you're familiar with the maternal instincts, right, you put 2 women together, and after about maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they're ready to kill each other, right? And so that's my mom and my sister, right? And my mom's like, you got to go home to your family and take care of your family. And so my sister says, well, who do you want to come take care of you? You want John, Jim, Tom? Who do you want? You want Dan? And she goes, get Danny. And so she asked if I would come and help take care of her, And so my sister would watch and take care of her for like 3 months, and then I'd drive out from Maryland and I'd take care of her for 3 months. And so we alternated for about a year and a half, and that was hard, man, It was a big blessing, though, to me to be able to spend quality time with my mom, who'd always been a big supporter of me. But by the time my last DUI, she was like, I'm not bailing him out no more. I'm not helping him. He's on his own. And she had thrown up her hands too, finally, but she never, she suggested I should maybe stop drinking, but she never told me to stop drinking. But as it turned out, my sister and I were giving her morphine in the end, and watched her pass, and it's a testament to Alcoholics Anonymous that I had the strength to be able to do it emotionally, right? Because as an alcoholic, right, emotions run wild, right? And do I need an excuse to drink? No, sure don't. But if I ever needed one, that would be one. I would have drank on that for a long time, and I didn't need to, which is a blessing. But I'm grateful that I was able to be there and watch her transition into the afterlife, and very blessed that she was able to see me sober, as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, So anyway, I'm tired. I think that's about all I got, guys, and I appreciate you having me up to share, and I hope that if you're new here, you heard something that you can take home with you, and you know, it's easier to stay sober than it is to get sober. Thank you.
Thank you.